check this out. It's almost like a police baton. It's crazy. Like, you could definitely use this as a weapon on a night out if somebody tried to mug you. Either that, or it's like a really, really long Harry Potter wand. I have never ever said I want to film in 360. I've never said I want to film in 360. I don't want a 360 camera. I've never wanted a 360 camera until this thing came along, the Insta 360 One-X. This thing is an absolute beast at so many things. So as a solo filmmaker, 99% of the time when I'm going out to make something, it's only me there. There's nobody around me to help me get some really cool B-roll of myself, and the only other way that I can actually do that is take out a drone, and well, that's just, number one, in a lot of places that's not viable because of noise and restrictions, and you know, everybody just looks at you the second the drone turns on. And number two, it's just awkward in a lot of spots. Like, you can't really get these nice easy shots the whole time. You're really struggling to make sure that the drone doesn't actually hit off anything. That's when the Insta 360 One-X definitely just completely blows everything else out of the water, for me anyway, to get B-roll shots as a solo filmmaker of myself. But there is one thing that sets aside the Insta 360 One-X as a 360 camera from all the other 360 cameras that are on the market. And well, it's this baton that I showed you at the very start, otherwise known as the invisible selfie stick. So basically what happens is you stick the 360 camera on the very top of this, and the second you put it into the editing software, or even if you try and edit it on your phone in the Insta 360 One-X app, which you can also do, very, very handy I must say, the stick is automatically just erased. They just, magic, just boop, it's gone. So this is in a way basically like a wand, like I said at the start. So this video is going to be about the Insta 360 One-X, the only 360 camera that I have primarily ever wanted, and I actually think it's a beast of a camera, if I'm gonna say so myself. So this is going to be about the positives of it, the negatives of it, basically just an all-rounder review, and just gonna tell you, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Will it match what you actually want? Let's just get into it. Oh yeah, I'm filming outside, so you might hear a little bit of traffic, and hopefully not too much. Plus there was construction work going on this morning, so hopefully they are finished by now. If not, this audio might be very, very bad, and well, look. Yeah. So right off the bat, this 360 camera does actually do a hell of a lot more than some of the 360 cameras that are out there on the market. So you can actually film this in 5.7K at 30 frames per second, 25 frames per second, or 24 frames per second. 4K at 50 frames per second, at 30 frames per second, and then 3K at 100 frames per second. So you can get that nice, smooth, slow-mo B-roll if you ever wanted to in 3K, which is incredible. My camera, the Canon EOS M50, films at 100 frames per second, but it only films in 720p. So my camera actually films slow-mo in worse quality than this 360 camera does, which is actually pretty messed up, to be quite honest. That's how good this camera is. You can see that this Insta 360 One-X is a very slim, small and sleek body. Only 2 buttons on it, which allows you to control different functions, going through the photo functions, the video functions, and into the settings themselves as well. It has a 28 ultra thin millimeter body, and each lens on either side can capture up to 200 degrees wide. So like, you're definitely going to capture every single thing around you, and you're not going to miss a single bit of anything that's happening. Whereas with a normal DSLR or mirrorless camera, you actually have to make sure you have the camera pointed in that proper direction. And if you don't, well, you know, you've missed it. Insta 360 One-X has got you covered everywhere, all the time. You don't have to worry about it. It has a large aperture with an f-stop of 2, and it has a number of modes in the photo mode and the video mode. So the photo mode, it can capture standard 360 photos, timed 360 photos, HDR photos, interval photos, and raw photos as well. So if you definitely want to get as much dynamic range in your photos for your editing stage, then you can definitely make use of the raw 360 photo setting. Now for the video settings, it has standard 360 video, time-lapse mode, bullet time, HDR, and log 360 video. So again, you have the log, which means that you can have as much color correction as possible, and you can control much more colors as opposed to just filming in standard 360 video. The bullet time setting is one of the functions on this Insta360 camera, and I believe I don't ever think I've seen it on anything else. It's actually pretty incredible. You basically, this is the bullet time stick. This is separate to the invisible selfie stick. This you can actually see in the video footage. It doesn't get rid of it. And you basically just connect the camera up to the top of this, and it's connected with strings that comes with it. And you can basically just hold the camera up on this over your head and swing it around. It's pretty insane. So for a 360 camera, this thing can basically capture nearly anything you want. It's an all-rounder camera. Da, da, da. Da, 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 da. I'm just messing around now, and I need to, like, you know, just get to work. Just make the points, Dean. Just make the points. I feel like this is sort of needless to say as a 360 camera, but the big difference that I find obviously with a 360 camera is I don't always have to point the lens in a certain direction for that part or that area to be actually captured. So say like Johnny over there has just fallen into the river and he's busted his head open, and I wanted to capture that on camera, but I'm recording on my mirrorless. Say I wasn't even pointing the camera in that direction. I've missed that amazing footage. Johnny has just busted his head open, and I'm here just like, damn, I didn't capture it. Do it again, Johnny. Do it again. But no, with the 360 camera, you obviously don't need to have it pointed in a certain direction. It can capture literally all around it. Both lenses can capture a 200-degree wide angle, so it's literally capturing every single bit around you. And you don't need to stitch up anything in post-production at all. Everything is already stitched up for you. Now, sometimes you can see that little bit of a stitch marking in the footage afterwards, but if you use the camera correctly, and if you definitely know your way around it after some time, then you can obviously avoid those mistakes and get the best footage possible. I'm singing songs from my old workplace. I've been in that old workplace for 3 years in a row, and those songs have just been literally melted into my head so much that I've been gone from that job for over a year now, and I'm still singing those songs. Not fun. The video bitrate on this camera can go up to 120 megabits per second, which is actually pretty damn crazy. So it means that even if you're taking shots of, let's say, leaves on the trees being blown around in the wind, your camera can pick up as much information in that picture itself, in that video, and it's not going to look all grainy or distorted, and it's not going to just struggle to pick up any bit of information. Basically, it's going to be a beast at every single thing that you can try and film as best as possible. Alright, now the battery in this camera only lasts 60 minutes, so make sure you take every single shot as best as possible. You don't want to be constantly redoing loads of different shots, especially if you only have the one battery with you. Now, charging time can take an hour and 40 minutes, but if you do have the docking station that is supplied from Insta360 One X, then it can only take 60 minutes to charge. So overall, the battery life for this thing, not the best in the world, but far from the worst too. 60 minutes is a long time, as long as you're making each shot count. So there are a few settings in this camera that definitely make the functionality of your experience way better. As for the shutter speed of the actual video recording, I would definitely suggest putting it on fast or faster, and you're going to have a lot more smooth looking footage, and it's not going to get blurry every 2 seconds when you move that camera on the invisible stick itself. There is also a setting in the camera itself called quick capture. I would definitely recommend putting that on. That means all you have to do then to quickly capture a video recording or a photo is to hold down the big button on the actual camera itself. The camera turns on and it automatically starts recording. Now let's talk about some add-ons that you can get for this camera as well. They do sell an underwater casing. So you can go underwater with this Insta360 ONE X as low as 30 meters depth, which is absolutely crazy. That's one thing I definitely want to try at some point in the future. I haven't yet because I only actually have this camera about 2 weeks. From what I've used of this camera, I love it. I think it's fantastic, especially as a solo filmmaker where I can get my own B-roll, solo B-roll shots. So the stitching of the two lenses on this camera is... Okay. That was a truck. So the stitching of the two lenses on this camera is pretty damn seamless. You don't have to do a single thing to stitch these cameras together. And say after 1 or 2 days of actually using this, you can figure out the best way to use this camera when you're recording to get the best potential footage at the very end, to make sure that that little bit of a seam doesn't show in the video. And even if it does, most people won't even notice. It's so easy and it's the best. I'm seeing my reflection in the ND filter and it's really putting me off. I can see my hands and it's really putting me off. I'm a handsy person. I use my hands when I talk a lot. I feel like I'm like, you know, I'm gonna hit somebody. Focus. So the stitching of these two cameras is pretty damn seamless. You don't have to do a single thing when you're editing to stitch those two cameras together, and that stitching is very, very unnoticeable the majority of the time. 1 or 2 days after using this camera, you can definitely understand the best way to actually use the camera when you're recording so that that stitching doesn't actually show up in the footage. Now the camera itself does only have 2 physical buttons on it. So I've heard some people complaining that it's a little bit fidgety to actually use because there's only 2 buttons. I personally don't find a problem with it. After say 3 or 4 days, I've actually understood what the 2 buttons functions are. Sometimes like the buttons do have different functions depending on what settings you're actually in, but once you get used to the camera after a little bit of time, you can understand it. It's not that hard. For me, the less buttons on a piece of equipment, the better, because I just find that you can better understand it and it's faster and easier to understand as well. So if we say connect up our wand, our baton, this is our 360 camera. So when we go in and connect up the app to the camera itself, it's pretty easy, just a simple Wi-Fi connection, and then we can just literally go around. There's my camera, there's me. You can see that I am actually holding the stick right now in my right hand and my phone is in my left hand, but you can't actually see the stick itself. That's the big magic thing about this camera, is that I can get some B-roll shots of myself and it doesn't look like it's me that's filming it. Some people say it looks like a drone. Some people say it looks like it's another filmmaker, somebody actually controlling the camera, but no, it's actually me. It's pretty incredible. This, as a solo filmmaker, makes my job 10 times and nearly 100 times easier in general. So what we can do now in the app is once we've recorded something on the camera, we can actually just go into the app, download that footage from the camera onto our phone and start editing it from our phone there, and we can put in loads of different tracking points. So I'm just going to show you some of that straight away. So this is even just the footage that I have just recorded. As you can see, we can look around. That's everything that we have right here around us. Our camera, there's me. You don't see the stick whatsoever, but what we can do is go up to the top right. We can download that, and it's going to download into the app then, and we can also then download that from the app onto our phone. So once that footage is then downloaded, we can actually go into this, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to show you a clip that I actually used the other day instead of this one. You may have seen it in the last vlog. It was actually pretty nice. So once we go into, if we go into camera, this is everything that's actually on the camera. everything we've downloaded from the camera onto our app is in local. So once we go into this, we can go into this clip that I actually recorded the other day when I went to Glen Sheelan Forest. We can skip ahead, and this is the shot that I took the other day. This is how I did it. I actually used the Insta360 1X, and what I can do is basically just hold down on the screen, select pivot point, and that can actually hold a tracking point. So once that is set there, I can move that forward, and I can actually, let's hold another pivot point right here actually. And if I move forward a little bit again, I can move the camera backwards, and I can select another pivot point there like that. If I, let's say, go back to our first pivot point, if I hit play, then this will actually track our pivot points that we have just recorded on the app. And it's that simple. This is the type of stuff that you would normally have to do in the actual footage on your computer, in Premiere Pro, in Final Cut, in the actual editing software for the Insta360 itself. So it's actually extremely handy to be able to do that on the go, especially if you're somewhere on a train or on public transport and you actually just want to quickly edit that video footage without having to wait later on in the night to actually do it at home. Now, the editing software is where I really feel that this actually falls down. You can only include one clip at a time in the timeline, and I just find that the software is a little bit hard to use when you're editing. However, you can always download the GoPro plugin and use that in Premiere Pro itself, and just use your normal tracking points by using keyframes instead. So that can actually be an alternative. However, I just feel that the big downside to this Insta360 1X is the actual editing software itself. Overall though, I think that is the only massive downside to this camera, is the editing software. There are workarounds to it. Everything else with the camera itself is absolutely top notch. I think it's well worth the money. It's absolutely incredible. And as for me, for a solo filmmaker, it makes getting shots a lot easier, a lot fun, and a lot faster as well. As for the audio, it's not necessarily meant to be a full-time proper camera, so the audio isn't the best. However, it isn't the worst either. It is usable if it's actually used on the tripod, which is the bullet time tripod. Other than that, if you're going to be moving around and walking and trying to use it as a talking camera, it's not going to do any favors for you. It's actually going to be worse for you. So the audio is okay. It's not the worst, but it's not necessarily meant to be a camera that you are talking to the entire time. And as for the price of this Insta360 1X, there are numerous options online with different pieces of equipment that you can get with it. There's the standalone creator kit, the get set kit, the battery kit, selfie stick kit, and the expedition kit. The one that I actually went for was the creator kit, and that is €527.95. What you get with it is the invisible selfie stick, the camera as well with it, the bullet time tripod, and the 32GB micro SD card. The stabilization on this camera is actually pretty insane. It's extremely good. It uses flow state stabilization, so the majority of the time the actual stabilization on it is better than anything else you'll ever really see. And that's what makes so many people love it, as well as the feature of the invisible selfie stick and how good the actual camera quality is as well. That is it for me this week, guys. If you like the sound of that camera, I would definitely suggest going out and getting it. As a solo filmmaker, it makes my job 10 times easier to get B-roll of myself, and this is going to make everything that I do a lot more fun, a lot easier, and I'm going to enjoy the filmmaking process way more. If you liked the video, smash that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're not already, smash the thumbs up button with whatever you want, a chisel, a hammer, a cup of tea. I have a cup of tea right here, that's why I thought of a cup of tea, and I'm going to see you guys next time. Peace. Finally, a cup of tea. Ew. Ew. That's been sitting there the last half an hour. It's stone cold. It's rotten. Ew. Peace out.